When I saw the divorce papers tucked under our tax folder, I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I called my lawyer. He thought he was walking out clean. What he didn't know, I already froze the accounts. He started the game. I'm here to finish it. The apartment was silent, save for the rhythmic hum of the fridge and the soft tapping of my fingers against the keyboard. I had just returned from an emotionally taxing day, the kind that left you questioning everything you thought you knew. My mind replayed the conversation from earlier, the way Jerome had looked at me, his words carrying a strange, almost rehearsed tone. It wasn't the first time I'd felt something was off, but tonight, it felt different. Jerome had always been pragmatic, never the type to indulge in romantic gestures or unnecessary displays of affection. He was efficient, a man who showed love through actions, paying the bills, setting the thermostat, fixing things when they broke. But tonight, he was different. The candle he had lit on the dinner table, the soft music playing in the background, even his touch, it all felt forced, as though he was trying to smooth over something far more sinister. My mind raced as I tried to place the pieces of the puzzle together. As the night dragged on, I found myself on my laptop, reviewing the finances. I had a sinking feeling in my stomach, a gnawing doubt that I couldn't shake. Something was wrong, and it wasn't just the way Jerome had been acting. I had seen enough red flags in my life to recognize when things weren't as they seemed. So I did what I knew best, I prepared. I backed up every file, every transaction, every document, everything that could protect me if things took a turn. The next few days were a blur. I continued my routine, but in the back of my mind, I was calculating, observing. Jerome went about his business, acting as though nothing had changed. But I knew better. I wasn't the same woman I had been months ago, the one who trusted blindly. The woman I had become was cautious, aware, and ready to fight back if necessary. One afternoon, as I scrolled through emails, an anonymous message caught my eye. It was brief, cryptic, and sent at an hour when I least expected it. "He's meeting with a lawyer," it read. "Protect yourself." The message hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt my pulse quicken, the weight of the words sinking in. Jerome had already taken the first steps in preparing to leave me, to ruin me. But I wasn't going to let him. I met with my lawyer the next day, a woman whose calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the storm inside me. She listened carefully, never interrupting, but I could tell she was just as committed as I was to seeing this through. We discussed the next steps, the documents I needed, the proof that would allow me to take control of the situation. I was ready for a fight, but I was going to fight smart. The battle for my life, my assets, and my dignity had just begun. Jerome thought he had me cornered. He didn't know the woman I had become. He didn't know that I was already 2 steps ahead of him, anticipating his every move. I wasn't going to be a passive victim in this story. I was going to be the one who wrote the ending. With each passing day, I grew more certain of my path. Every document, every conversation, every action was now part of a well-thought-out plan. I wasn't just protecting myself, I was taking back the control I had lost. And when the time came to confront him, I would be ready. But for now, I waited. And as I sat quietly in my office that evening, the city lights flickering through the window, I couldn't help but feel a sense of peace. It wasn't the peace I had once known, the comfort of ignorance. It was something different, something stronger. It was the peace that comes with knowing you're no longer at the mercy of someone else's choices. This was just the beginning. The storm was still on the horizon, but I was no longer afraid. And so, I moved forward. Slowly, but with purpose. The first crack appeared quietly, barely noticeable at first, but once it opened, the world inside my marriage shattered. I'd always believed in the simplicity of love, in the unspoken understandings, the little things that tie 2 people together. But that night, the trust one had in Jerome started to unravel in subtle ways. It wasn't just the superficial oddities, the dinner, the candle, the soft touches that felt rehearsed. No, it was the undertones of his words, the things he wasn't saying. He was already preparing for something bigger. And I wasn't the last to know. A week before our anniversary, I discovered the truth. Jerome had been plotting to leave me, taking everything we had worked for, the accounts, the house, even my name on the paperwork. I felt the world tilt beneath my feet, but something inside me solidified. I wouldn't be blindsided. I wouldn't let him win. So, I took the first step. I filed for divorce first. But that was only the beginning. Freezing our accounts was my next move. The sense of empowerment I felt was overwhelming, but it came with its own weight. It was necessary, I knew that, but it didn't make the choice any easier. The emotional toll of freezing everything, of essentially locking him out of our shared life, was immense. I wasn't just securing assets. I was securing my future, my autonomy. I was taking back control of something he had already decided to strip away from me. The phone call with my lawyer, Mara, came soon after. We discussed the details of the divorce, the strategic steps I needed to take to ensure my protection. Each action felt like a personal sacrifice, each decision was more than just legal, it was deeply emotional. I had loved Jerome. For years, I had trusted him, built my life around him. The woman I had been before couldn't have imagined making these decisions. But I was no longer her. That woman had been swallowed by the betrayal, replaced by someone far sharper, more strategic. Mara was calm, meticulous, and steady as we crafted our approach. We talked about filing the papers, the need to freeze all joint assets, and the importance of protecting everything that was mine. I had no intention of waiting for Jerome to take the first step. If anyone was going to control this narrative, it was going to be me. The emotional burden of these actions was overwhelming. Every time I sat down to review documents, I had to suppress the raw pain that threatened to surface. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the realization that I had been so deeply deceived, that everything I thought I knew was a lie. I had built my life around him, and now, I had to rebuild it all from scratch. The thought of losing everything, the years, the memories, the shared future, haunted me. But there was no time for self-pity. The choice had been made. The divorce papers were filed. The accounts were frozen. And I had taken the first step to reclaim my life. It wasn't a decision I had made lightly, but it was a necessary one. Every day since, I had taken small steps to ensure my safety and security, locking down every account, every document, every email. There was a sense of clarity in these actions. They gave me focus, something I hadn't felt in a long time. As the days passed, I started to feel something else building inside me, a quiet, but steady, sense of control. It was empowering to know that I was no longer waiting for him to make the next move. I was the one driving this now. And with each step I took, I felt more like myself again. But there was still work to be done. I had to keep moving forward. I wasn't just playing defense anymore, I was on the offense. The more I uncovered, the more I realized just how deep this betrayal ran. Every action he took was designed to undermine me, to remove me from the equation without me ever seeing it coming. But the more I uncovered, the clearer the picture became. He thought I wouldn't notice the little things, the signs that screamed of his preparation to walk away. But I did. Each document, every bank statement, every piece of evidence I gathered made me stronger. They were my shield, my armor, protecting me from his manipulation. And every time I sat down to go over the facts, to document the trail of lies he had carefully laid out, I felt my resolve solidify. When I realized the extent of his manipulation, I took my next step. I protected myself legally. I contacted a forensic accountant to trace every suspicious transaction, every withdrawal, every transfer. Nothing was left to chance. It was more than just about the money. It was about him trying to steal my future, my peace of mind. And I wasn't going to let him do that. The more I thought about the kind of man he had become, the angrier I got. This wasn't just about money or assets. This was about trust, betrayal, and the lies he had built his life on. Every day felt like a battle, but it wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about proving that I could stand on my own, that I could rebuild everything he tried to take from me. As I navigated through the emotional and logistical mess he left behind, I realized something. I wasn't just fighting for what I had lost. I was fighting for the woman I had become, for the person I was finally allowing myself to be. And that person was strong. She was focused. She was no longer afraid of the fight. One night, as I sat in my apartment, going over the final details of my plan, I felt a sense of calm settle over me. The storm was far from over, but for the first time in weeks, I felt like I was standing firm on solid ground. I had taken control, and with that control came a power I hadn't realized I possessed. I wasn't just reacting to his betrayal. I was taking charge of my future. And no matter what he threw at me next, I knew I was ready. I would be the one who shaped the next chapter. It would be mine to write. If you suspect your spouse is concealing assets during your divorce, it's crucial to take proactive steps to ensure a fair division of property. Here's a comprehensive guide to help you uncover hidden assets. These indicators can suggest that your spouse is trying to hide assets. Often, it's subtle, and you may need to dig deeper to find discrepancies. Sometimes, the signs are so vague that they're easy to dismiss, but trust your gut and investigate further. Interrogatories, written questions requiring detailed responses under oath. They are a tool in discovery where you can ask your spouse to explain financial matters, particularly any that seem suspicious. Requests for production. These are formal demands for documents such as tax returns, bank statements, and investment records. Your attorney can request all financial documents to ensure full transparency. Subpoenas. A subpoena is a court order compelling third parties, e.g., banks, employers, to release financial information that may reveal hidden assets. Depositions. Sworn testimonies from your spouse or witnesses to gather information. During a deposition, your spouse may be required to explain any financial transactions you suspect. These tools are part of the discovery process, ensuring both parties disclose financial information transparently. Review financial documents, scrutinize bank statements, credit card bills, and tax returns for inconsistencies. Look for transfers or payments that don't make sense. Analyze business records, examine profit and loss statements, balance sheets, and tax filings for irregularities. Check for any personal expenses being paid from business accounts, or for income that has not been reported. Check public records, search for undisclosed properties or business interests. Sometimes, hidden assets are tied to assets in the names of friends or family members to keep them out of the court's view. Monitor digital transactions, look for transfers to cryptocurrency wallets or online payment platforms. Many people think these transactions are anonymous, but there are ways to trace them. PayPal, Venmo, and other digital accounts can hold the key to discovering assets that are being moved without documentation. These methods can help trace hidden assets and uncover financial concealment. Financial transactions today can leave digital footprints that are easier to track than ever before, making technology a powerful ally in your quest for the truth. Hiding assets during a divorce is illegal and can result in severe consequences. Unequal property division. The court may award a larger share of the marital estate to the honest spouse. If your spouse is found to have intentionally hidden assets, you may receive a larger portion of the assets as a punishment for their dishonesty. Contempt of court. Penalties for failing to comply with court orders. If your spouse is found to have lied under oath or withheld information, they could be held in contempt, which can result in fines, legal fees, or other sanctions. Criminal charges. In severe cases, charges of fraud or perjury can be brought. Hiding assets during a divorce can be considered financial fraud, a crime that carries serious penalties. These legal consequences underscore the importance of full transparency during a divorce. Courts take a strong stance against dishonesty and manipulation in financial matters, particularly when it comes to marital assets. Consult with an experienced divorce attorney. Seek legal counsel to guide you through the process. A lawyer who specializes in divorce cases can help you understand your legal rights and options. They can also advise on how to gather and present evidence of concealed assets. Gather financial documentation. Collect all available records, including bank statements, tax returns, and investment documents. Having a complete picture of your joint financial situation will give you a better chance of spotting any discrepancies. Consider hiring financial experts. Engage forensic accountants or digital forensic specialists if necessary. These professionals have the skills to trace hidden transactions and detect irregularities that might not be apparent to the untrained eye. Initiate legal discovery. Work with your attorney to employ legal tools to uncover hidden assets. Your lawyer will be able to formally request the necessary documents, issue subpoenas, and handle any legal disputes that arise from these efforts. By taking these steps, you can work towards a fair and equitable division of marital property. Ensuring that hidden assets are uncovered not only helps protect your financial interests, but also ensures the integrity of the divorce process itself. For the protagonist, the emotional toll of investigating hidden financial transactions was not just about the shock of betrayal, it was about finding the strength to confront the person she once trusted. Every night spent scanning bank records, every cryptic email from an anonymous source, deepened the feeling of isolation. There was a constant ache in her chest as she pulled the threads of her once happy life apart, but she had no choice. The evidence needed to be gathered, meticulously, without arousing suspicion. It wasn't just the financial betrayal, it was the psychological warfare. The constant balancing act of pretending nothing was wrong while quietly collecting evidence was exhausting. The longer the investigation went on, the more her suspicions grew. Jerome's sudden interest in their finances, the way he downplayed everything, the too careful manner in which he spoke about protection and future planning. The protagonist's investigation into joint accounts and financial records uncovered troubling signs. Most notably, there were the mysterious transfers to someone named Rochelle G., a name she'd never heard before. At first, the amounts seemed insignificant, but the consistency with which they occurred raised red flags. She could feel the knot in her stomach tightening every time she saw the name. Using technology to track these transactions became her lifeline. She backtracked every transfer, pulled up transaction histories, and compared dates to find patterns. Yet, despite the growing evidence of betrayal, there was a constant, heavy tension in the air. She hadn't confronted him yet, she wasn't ready for that. The evidence was mounting, but she knew the final confrontation would be the ultimate test of her resilience. Her growing suspicion intensified as she realized the depth of her husband's secret plans. Jerome was not just planning to leave her, he was systematically trying to cover his tracks, attempting to ruin her professionally and personally before she could act. She couldn't afford to make a move too soon, not while there were still pieces to be placed. But she was running out of patience. And as the investigation progressed, the weight of what she had to do next began to settle heavily on her shoulders. Every phone call, every sleepless night spent poring over documents, added to the emotional toll. The protagonist was no longer just a wife seeking clarity, she was becoming a detective, a strategist, someone building a case against a person who once claimed to love her. She knew the stakes. Confronting him too soon could lead to an explosive response, one that could undo everything she had worked so hard to uncover. Instead, she carefully built her defense, piece by piece, setting a trap that would not only expose him but ensure he couldn't escape the consequences of his actions. The evening air felt thick with tension, a storm of emotions brewing inside me as I sat across from him. Jerome, the man I once thought I knew inside and out, sat casually across from me at the dinner table, a smugness creeping into his voice as he mentioned the necessary paperwork for our accounts. The familiarity of his routine was now laced with a false sense of normalcy. As he spoke, I couldn't ignore the pit that had formed in my stomach, a cold certainty that the calm facade he wore was about to crack. He wasn't the man I had married, the affection I'd once cherished had dissolved into a mask he wore to cover his true intentions. For years, he'd played the role of the loving husband, and now, I was witnessing the unraveling of that illusion. I wasn't sure when the betrayal had started, but I knew it had long been simmering beneath the surface. This wasn't just a bad phase, this was him, playing the long con, thinking I wouldn't see it. It wasn't just about the affair with Rochelle or the financial moves I had uncovered. It was about the profound betrayal of trust, the kind that gnaws at your very sense of self. I had been manipulated for so long, lulled into believing the life we had built together was real, only for it to be torn apart by his deceit. His attempts at seeming concerned about our finances, the casual mentions of emergency planning, and his concern over tax issues, all of it felt rehearsed, as if he were practicing for a performance he thought I would buy into. The true weight of his betrayal hit me harder than I expected. The phone call from Noelle earlier that day, revealing the kiss between Jerome and another woman, had been the final blow. I had suspected something was off, but hearing it confirmed felt like a cold slap to the face. His efforts to paint me as the clueless wife who didn't notice the cracks in our marriage were starting to crumble, but I had to keep my composure. I needed to play my part until the moment was right. As the night wore on, I slipped into action. I had already prepared the contingency plan, gathering the evidence, documenting his financial manipulations, and building my case piece by piece. I could feel the weight of what I was doing, but there was no turning back now. I wasn't just surviving this betrayal, I was taking control. The documents I had gathered were more than just paper, they were the weapon I needed to confront him, to show him that I wasn't the naive woman he had thought I was. The confrontation would come soon, but not just yet. I had one last move to make. The next morning, when he left for work, I went through the joint accounts again. Slowly, methodically, I pored over the records, marking every suspicious transaction. There they were, payments to a Rochelle G. The name seemed so ordinary, yet it carried a weight I couldn't ignore. I clicked through the transactions. October 12th, a $250 payment. October 19th, a $480 transfer. October 26th, a $620 withdrawal, all of them going to the same mysterious woman. It wasn't just about the money. It was the confirmation of everything I had feared. My husband was hiding something much darker. This wasn't just about an affair. It was about control, manipulation, and the audacity of thinking I wouldn't notice the subtle signs of his betrayal. I opened a new browser, searched for Rochelle G., and what I found made my stomach churn. She wasn't just some passing fling, she was part of a larger scheme, a businesswoman with ties to a company he'd been setting up behind my back. This was all part of his plan to siphon money, to create a life he wanted without me. Later that night, when he returned home, his casual demeanor did nothing to mask the tension in the air. He handed me a folder of paperwork from his accountant, documents that now seemed like nothing more than a distraction, a last-ditch attempt to make me sign away everything he had already planned to take. But I wasn't fooled.